I'm going to say this and I'm going to end mine. If you ain't down for the Africans here in the United States, period, point blank, if you ain't down for the ones that suffer in South Africa.
Race relations in America have been on shaky ground since our very beginning. Several groups of people have had to endure, suffer through, and overcome horrible treatment in order to get even the most basic of human rights granted to them. Perhaps nobody has had it worse than what the secular world will call black Americans, African Americans, people who descend from West Africa. What the secular world will call the black community has responded to their struggles in America in multiple and diverse ways down through the generations. Some have been passive and accepted mistreatment as an unchangeable and unalterable fate that they must live with in silence and in fear forever. Others have responded with civil disobedience, trying to effect change, even at risk to their safety and their lives. Still others have responded with radical hatred and militant rhetoric. Some have become violent. Some have turned to the political arena to have their issues addressed by the lawmakers and the courts. Some have turned to drugs to try to escape by altering their state of consciousness. Others have turned to the talk show circuit. Some have went to Hollywood and gotten positions within the entertainment industry. Some have turned to the arts, such as music and poetry, and expressed their views in that forum. Some have turned to community organizationalism and community activism. Now, some of these responses have been very effective, and fruit has been borne. Others have produced the opposite effect and made conditions in the black community even worse than they were before the idea was put into action. But of all the methods of reacting to the racism that the black Americans have faced, the most tragic comes from the religious angle. False prophets selling and hawking false religions have been engineered by Satan and propagated within the black community, preying on and attacking this very issue. Hello, my name is Brian James Shanley. I'm a Christian minister, author, and lecturer, and I'm a recording artist. The false religions that were spawned during this struggle in order to be marketed specifically to the black community have been on my radar for many, many years. Any responsible minister who has eyes, ears, and a brain knows that this is a situation which must be dealt with. I looked to my left, and I saw what the secular world would call the white Christian community. They were concerned with PowerPoint presentations, rock bands, coffee shops, laser light shows, preaching very mainstream messages, and avoiding controversial subjects like the plague because people view talking openly about controversial subjects as a negative exercise, and no preacher wants to be viewed as negative. Building big buildings and attracting large crowds are the agenda of the day. So then I looked to my right, and I saw what the secular world would call the black Christian community. I saw a leadership of bishops, elders, reverends, etc., who look up to and admire both the oratory skills and the political clout within the community of the black separatist and superiority cult leader. Because the cult leader has done great things in the community, and because their movement brings forth a message of self-help and self-esteem to people who otherwise wouldn't have it. And because they agree with them on social issues like welfare and police brutality, and because saying anything negative about such a visible and respected leader in the community would upset the constituency at the church and hurt the number of people in the pews as well as the amount of money in the collection plate, I saw the bishops and the elders and the reverends look the other way. I saw them give a free pass because images and relationships and culture and social issues are viewed as more important than matters of truth and eternal destiny. I looked behind me, and I saw liberal, supposed denominations of Christianity composed of both black and white, seemingly the only denomination that can unite the church along racial lines is through the act of liberalism and the denial and the attack of essential Christian doctrine and the authority of the Scriptures nowadays. I'm not sure what that's about, but I saw leadership there who do not view any religion as absolutely true. Thus, of course, nothing is false. So things are falling apart around them on the street and in the community, and their response is not attacking the problem, but by lighting a candle and singing Kumbaya. There's no way that an answer to the black separatist cults is going to come from them. So I looked in front of me at the apologetics and the counter-cult evangelism ministries that are out there. And yeah, they're doing the work. They're answering Mormonism. They're answering the Jehovah's Witnesses. But what about the Moorish Science Temple? What about the Nation of Islam? What about the Five Percenters? What about the Black Israelites? Well, these things don't exactly cross over into the white suburban community very much. Thus, it's not really viewed by many as a relevant or a needed study. It's not seen often as important. As a result, of all of these groups simultaneously remaining silent about this issue, black separatist and supremacist cults have flourished for nearly a century. They've thrived, unexamined, unresponded to. It would seem that God, at the appropriate time, would raise up a preacher and a ministry that doesn't care what people are going to call him, that doesn't care how people are going to assassinate his character, that doesn't care how many people show up or how much money is donated. There's got to be a guy whose chief concern is people's souls, who's willing to be hated by the very people he's trying to help if perhaps his suffering might result in one of them being born again. Someone's got to care about the religious hucksters chewing the black community alive, as well as the victims who get taken to the cleaners in this life and get sent to hell in the next life. I prayed to God, and I learned that this duty was going to be given to me. I wasn't ready, but who is? In the summer of 2008, I delivered a series of lectures on the subject, an introduction to black separatist cults. Garveyism, black liberation theology, the Moorish Science Temple, black Israelitism, Father Divine, the Nation of Islam, the Five Percenters, you name it, I claim it. It was severely put in check. I was in front of a very small Bible class, so I was at liberty. I had the freedom to rip the mic, to fearlessly speak the truth. Times of question and answers took us into many other areas. For example, rap music, the hip-hop culture, interracial dating and marriage, the 2008 Barack Hussein Obama presidential campaign, the end times, and a host of other things. If you are what the secular world would call a black person, or if you're interested in preaching and teaching in the black community, you need to look around at what's going on there. The vultures and the predators have gathered. They've got their eye on you. They've got their eye on your neighbor, your friend, your coworker, your schoolmate, your children, your grandchildren. They want to lure them out of the church and make them into a blind, subservient robot, a spiritual slave trapped in a false religion, hanging out on a corner, selling newspapers, angry, confused, bitter, and on their way to hell. The only purpose and the only future you can see for someone like this will be used as a puppet to further the image and the agenda of some cult leader who barks orders at them. What are you going to do about it? God is calling on you during this time. Are you going to answer the call? I'm not trying to say that I'm anything, but my lecture series, An Introduction to Black Separatist Cults, may quite possibly be the most important recording ever laid down on this subject. If you plan to reach what the secular world would call the black community, you need to arm yourself with this essential ammunition. If you're considering joining one of these groups, if you're talking to them, if they're tickling your ear, if you're inches away from joining them, you need to listen to this series. You need to get the facts before you get sucked in. Christians, is your pastor going to cover this subject on Sunday morning? Probably not. Does God desire for you to be ignorant about it? Absolutely not. So then what choice have you got? You've got to have this series in your library. Christians, it's time to get your spiritual hands up. It's time to go to spiritual war. It's time to defend the faith and to defend the people in our neighborhood from this invasion of black separatist cults. They've been pushing and pushing and pushing for 100 years. It's time to push back. If you're a leader or a peddler or a spreader of one of these religions, I'm putting you on notice. A generation of Christians is being trained as we speak and is rising up, fully equipped to dialogue, debate, and refute your lies. When the two of you meet verbally in public, you will be exposed. To talk all of this trash about Christianity and the Trinity and the Bible and Jesus, to run your mouth for 100 years and attack the church that has reached out to this community, the most foolish thing that you've ever done is assume that we would never respond. We're responding and we're coming. We'll see you in the debate forums. We'll see you on the street. We look forward to taking back our people and our neighborhoods. I'm not the greatest orator of the day. There are other people that are much better. But every once in a while, God empowers me to take a mic and throw down some magic. And I do believe that this is one of those times. I urge you not to miss it. Praise be the name of the Honorable Jesus Christ.
So, nigga, it's time to rob and mob and break the women off something lovely.